my third time, fourth time here, and I love coming to visit you, and I love learning from you and spending time. And if you accept what I will try to teach and pass on, I think it's beneficial for both yourself and myself. So I've been asked to talk about relationships, which is a very difficult topic, but a very interesting topic. Thank you. And I think the idea is, this is a topic that is relevant to both guys and girls, and growing up in the church, in the Orthodox Church. It's very interesting to see what our parents and what our church teaches us about relationships, but also what the world around us teaches us about relationships. And we'll come on to that later on. I think it's also important to know that we live in a time where things change very quickly. So if you look back to your parents, the time of them when they were in relationships, maybe something like dating wasn't even a thing, or like back home, it wasn't like that. Like in our culture, so I was born and raised in Sudan. My parents were born and raised in Sudan, and Sudan and Egypt, again, very similar culture, but in Sudan is, again, very strict. So if I'm interested in somebody, my family go to her house and then they speak and ask permission from her family and that kind of thing. There's no proposals, there's no diamond ring, there's no going down on one knee, all of these things. But then when you come here and you live in this country, things are a little bit different. So I think like with everything that you're doing is trying to find the balance between staying true to your origins and your traditions, but at the same time still living in society. And even this wonderful meeting, I've seen it grow, and all the different services that we're doing more and more English services, and I think it's great. So this is a very, very good topic. What I'll share with you today is just my humble opinion. Feel free to agree or disagree with me. We'll definitely have questions and discussions, but I think we'll get started, and then if there is something that's on your mind, please feel free to interrupt me. So we'll just do a quick introduction called If Only You Knew. And that common sense is uncommon. So if you remember, I told you before that I'm an engineer, so my brain works in like logic steps, and I thought that common sense is common, turns out to be uncommon. And what that means specifically in relationships is that we have a lot of issues that arise in relationships because there's a lot of things that are common sense, but most people just don't realize them because no one ever taught them, or they just didn't know. And that raises a lot of issues in the relationships. So today we're going to discuss things like, didn't anyone ever tell you this is how guys think? Or this is what happens when you treat a girl like this? And then hopefully this will save you a lot of heartache, but also open your mind about what relationships should be like, not what you see around you necessarily. So before we start, we'll do a quick exercise. I would ask you to take out your phones just for this slide, and then you can put them away. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a list. I'm going to ask you to choose your top 3 attributes that you want in your partner, and be as honest as you can. So this is just for you. Just note them down on your phone. We'll go through them very quickly, and just choose your top 3. Not necessarily number 1, 2, or 3, just your top 3 as to what you think is the most important. So for the guys, this is what you're looking for in a girl, and then for the ladies, this is what you're looking for in a partner. So one of them is to be your soulmate. I will just go through them like that. To be obedient, finish your sentences, to be intelligent, academically successful, have a good sense of humor, to make good money, have the same taste in food, to have similar hobbies, to be actively religious, to be attractive. There's no shame in that. That doesn't mean you're shallow. To be Eritrean, to be sensitive or emotional, to be a leader. And then the best one is chemistry. I love that one, chemistry. So choose your top 3, make a list of them, and then I'll just give you a couple of minutes. Listen, thank you. Right, you guys love it. That's so funny. Did I write something wrong? I'm serious. Some people insist. finish your sentences, to be intelligent, academically successful, good sense of humor, to make good money, same taste in food, similar hobbies, actively religious, to be attractive, to be attractive, to be sensitive, emotional, to be a leader, and then just chemistry, good chemistry. Okay, all done? Everyone write down their top three? Okay, what will be really interesting is by the time we finish this talk and then you look back at it, maybe the three things that you wrote down may change or they may still be the same. It'd just be interesting to know. No one's going to see this, you don't have to share it with anyone if you don't want, it's just kind of for your own reference. So we'll start by talking about some truths in relationships. Now, no area of life that promises more rewards than in relationships. And the reality is that most of our expectations of relationships are not realistic. And the world has worked very hard to sell us these perfect relationships, which will probably never come true. Your Hollywood and your Disney and all of those things, they're just not realistic. And this applies to dating, marriage, sex, etc. And as many mistakes are made in relationships due to bad decision making, based on idealistic perceptions of what relationships are and bad guidance. So men make the wrong decision, women make the wrong decision, they ask the wrong friends around them maybe, or they're looking for the wrong things. It's just bad decision making and a lack of guidance, and we will speak about that later. And most people learn about relationships either from their parents, because that's what you see growing up, or what they see in movies or social media. And that's very skewed. Like, if we're honest with ourselves, and in this meeting I like to be honest because that's how we learn. When was the last time you saw a happy marriage portrayed on TV? Or sex within marriage portrayed as fun instead of boring? They all show like the wife is just, she looks like this or whatever, she's not fun. But, the secretary at work or something is a lot more attractive. And it's a shame, because Hollywood doesn't think that good marriages are entertaining. And then I'm going to speak a little bit about marriage, because it's kind of where I feel like you're at an age where when you're in a relationship, you want to look at the long term, you want to look at the goal. So there's no point of starting something if you don't think it's going to work out or last. So we'll speak a little bit about marriage, and then we'll go back to relationships for where we are at the moment. So I've been married for 11 years. Next week is my anniversary. And I'd say marriage is definitely the most challenging and life-changing experience a person can go through. So why do you do it, and has it become old-fashioned? So statistics show that less and less people are getting married, and more people are getting divorced, which is really sad in this country. These days people will live together, they will have children together, and they just don't see the point in marriage. They say, why do I need a certificate? Whereas from our point of view, the Orthodox, when we're Christian, we believe that God has created marriage between a man and a woman, and to have a life companion. That's how God created Adam and Eve. And marriage can actually be very satisfying and fulfilling if we truly understand how God designed it to be. If you go back to the book of Genesis, when God created Adam, he didn't create Eve at the same time. And he did something very, very interesting. He asked Adam to name all the animals in the kingdom. And Adam realized that they were male and female, male and female. And then he said to himself, all these animals have someone else like them, except me. And so he turned to God and said, I feel like I'm alone. And that's when God gave him Eve. So it was Adam's desire, and then God fulfilled that desire. And that's how we were created, that's how we were designed, not to be alone. Like we're meant to be in relationships in different ways, like family, in church, wife and husband, with children. We are relationship beings, And that's what God wants us to be, but done in the right way. So my wife, for example, she went on a girls' holiday. I was existing, but I was not living. Even though I could do whatever I want, whenever I wanted. The house was so clean, it was so quiet, it was great, because my wife wasn't there. But it didn't feel like I was enjoying life. I wasn't fulfilling my purpose. I've just felt like there was something missing. And like I said, don't think that good marriages don't exist just because Hollywood doesn't think it will make good entertainment. They do exist. In fact, the best marriages are the ones that you will see from your servants around you or people in church, and you're looking at them and you're like, this is a wonderful family. Look at this husband, look at this wife, look at the way they raise their children. This is good. But nobody focuses on that. We speak about the marriages that have failed or what we see on TV and things like that. I'll just quickly go through some marriage benefits. So we know that marriage is a sacrament made by God for humans. You never have to experience anything in life alone, good or bad. That's one of the best things about marriage. So my wife and I, we go through the good stuff together and the bad stuff together. But we're not alone regardless of what it is. It's also a pride killer, especially for men. If you go into marriage thinking that you will be the boss and your pride and all of this stuff, you will last maybe one day. And then you learn things about yourself that you didn't know. When you live with someone, you realize like, oh, I didn't realize I'm like this. I prefer things like this. And in being with someone, they reveal things in you as well. And it teaches you boundaries, how to say yes or no. And even if those things are not necessarily bad, like if I'm coming to do a talk here today, for example, I have to make sure that my wife and my daughter are okay. They have something to do, that they're not in need of anything. And so you have to set up healthy boundaries. And then it teaches you the true meaning of love, which is in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. If you have the time to read it, that is the definition of love, not what the world teaches us today. Today they use word love for anything. I love, I don't know, chicken, or I love, I don't know, whatever. But this is very, very different to the true meaning of love. And then it gives you an opportunity to grow your own family and to follow God's commandment and receive God's promises with it. And then finally, is to enjoy sex in the way that God intended it. This is very, very important. With one person at the right time for pleasure and procreation. And there's other churches or other denominations that will tell you no, sex is just for having children only. But we don't necessarily believe that. Like God, this is a gift from God. And I know that the topic of sex is not necessarily what we're speaking about today, but it's one of those things where, because you don't talk about it, it's forbidden, it's wrong. It's not wrong. Like God designed us in this way. But to be done with one person and at the right time, which is within marriage. We'll move on. I'll share with you a statement, a profound statement, that is a bit hard to grasp at the beginning, but we'll wrap your head around it as we go along. And the statement is this: your present will soon become your past, which will have an impact on your future. I'll say that again. Your present, which is today, will soon become your past, which will have an impact on your future. So today is the present, but one day, say 10 years down the line, it will be your past. And this happens in the future. So what you do today, your actions, not just in relationships, but all aspects of life, will one day become your past, which will impact your future. Think of studying. How much you study today, how hard you work today, will become your past and will have an impact on your future. The harder you work, the harder you study, the better grades you get, the better job you can have. And then when you look back at it, you're like, okay, that was my past. I studied really hard, I worked really hard. As a result, I now have a good job, I can have a family, a house, and all these things. And the other side is that if you don't work hard, if you don't study, and you waste your talents, that's what you do today. It will become your past and it will impact your future. So when it goes back to relationships, we're saying what we will learn today will give you an amazing insight into marriage that that married people wish they had known. Like I wish when I was growing up, and as I was your age, I would listen to a talk like this because it will really, really help me in the future. And we used to think that marriage is a fresh start. So everything you did before that is in the past. Like we just discussed that our present will become our past, which will impact our future. And there's no such thing as marriage problems. There are single people problems brought into marriage. Issues that arise in marriage did not start when you got married. They started way before. They just weren't addressed, and then they were dragged into marriage. And we'll discuss that later on. And if you don't deal with those single life problems, they will follow you into marriage, and they will become even worse. They become magnified. And I'll go through a couple of examples here of single life problems. You're an impatient person. If you don't like someone, you can just walk away. But in marriage, you live together. There's no escape. So if I'm impatient and I'm speaking to somebody and they are taking too long or I'm not happy with what they're saying, I'll just walk away. Okay, thanks very much, so I have to go, and I leave. I haven't dealt with my impatience, I've just found a way out. If you take this into marriage and you're speaking to your partner and you're still an impatient person, where are you going to go? This is your house, this is where you live. You can't shut the other person out. Another example, you have anger issues. So you can hide this most of the time, but in marriage, your partner will become your punching bag, metaphorically speaking, of course. And that's so sad that you see someone who's very angry, didn't deal with their anger issues before, they get married, and they take it out on their partner. And you see a lot of domestic abuse or just marriage failing because one of the spouses did not deal with their anger issues. Another example, you have a problem with lust. You watch porn or indulge in sexual activity to quench these desires, not realizing you can never satisfy your lust. Then in marriage, you're not satisfied and you end up cheating on your spouse. You're like, oh, it's different to be like this, or I've waited my whole life for this, and it turns out to be like that. That's not right. This is just not true. It's fake. It's not what sex is meant to be like. And so what I'm saying is that you think to avoid all these problems, you wish you just marry the right person for you, and then everything will be okay. And this leads us to the next point, which is the right person myth. It's a myth. It's not true. It is not about all I have to do is make sure I marry the right one. And the whole focus is trying to find the right one. This is something that someone would say. My current problems won't be an issue if I marry the right person, because they will be able to deal with them. I won't need to be patient because they will be super efficient just like me. And I won't have anger issues because they will never do anything wrong. This is fantasy. This is not true. You have the anger problem. You have the impatience. You should resolve those issues. And do not blame your partner for them. And that chemistry that I was telling you about, it just clicked. You're like talking all night, you want to see each other every day. Everybody's like, yeah, it's like what we see in the movies, like the first meet and the guy looks at the girl and they fall in love and all this stuff. Even the term falling in love, what does that mean? I just tripped and I'm in love now. Like it's just not real. So this term chemistry, in my opinion, I think it's overrated. And if this was the case, they get married, the chemistry suffers, the sex suffers, and marriage is blamed for it. Then somebody cheats, their marriage is over, and they think this is all because they simply married the wrong person. Unfortunately, we've got many friends of mine, my age, and I'm not even 40 yet, and they have children and their marriages have failed. And when you ask them why, they say, I married the wrong person. Which is really, really sad. So please do not fall into this trap. It is not about the right person myth. If there was 7 billion people in the world, there's exactly 3.5 billion men and 3.5 billion women, okay, but that's not the reality. Or you'll see in some churches that there's maybe more women than there are men. Does that mean that you're not meant to marry someone from your church? Like, I want us to be a bit more open-minded. It's not about being fixated on, I must find the right person. Because if you find the right person, there will be no arguing, they won't make me angry or any of those things. That is not the case. So that was the profound statement number one, is that what we do today, our present, will one day become our past, and it impacts our future. And like I said, that applies to your work, to relationships with your family, your church, your service, all of these things. So think about what you do today, which will one day become your past and it impacts your future. Profound statement number two. Are you the person you're looking for is looking for? I'll say that again. Are you the person that the person you're looking for is looking for? What do I mean by that? I'll give you an example. There was a girl in our church. She grew up in church and then she went to university. And when she went to university, she changed a little bit. She kind of grew up, matured, and she was a bit less strict on herself, let's say it that way. She would wear things that she would normally wear at home. She might go drinking or go to clubs or parties or whatever this is. Nothing too serious. She's still, she's still okay. She's still coming back home, going to church and doing all these things. And then one day, when she came back to church, she saw this really nice guy that she loved. He was tall, he was handsome, and he was a servant in the church, and he's from a good family, he was a doctor, he ticked all of her boxes. She's like, this is the one for me, he's perfect. And she watches him, and he's involved in church, and everybody looks up to him, and she's like, this is great, this is what I want. She tells her mom, she says, this guy in church, I think he's the one for me, I really, really like him. He's a really holy person, he's a great leader, very successful in many different things. And her mom sat her down and said to her, I love you very much, and you're my daughter, and I think you're absolutely great. But a guy like that isn't looking for a girl like you. Which is really harsh. And that's when the girl realized the reality is that, yes, this is the guy that she's been looking for, but is she the one that he's been looking for? And that's the difference. So what I want us to do is to focus on being the best possible version of yourself. So when the time is right, God will show you the person you've been looking for who's also been looking for you. Our job is not to focus on the other person, not my future wife, not my future husband. I can't control that. What I can do is focus on me and to become the best possible version of myself. And we'll do some practical steps in a bit. But this is very, very important to understand that it's linked to the first statement, that what we do today becomes our past, impacts our future. So we should invest in ourselves to be the best possible version. So when the time is right, I'm ready. And remember that God's time is perfect. For different people, it's a different age. I have friends of mine who got married at the age of 19. I have friends of mine who got married at the age of 40. There's no specific time for people. It's just about focusing on yourself and trusting God's time. The last thing you want is to meet someone when God wants for you, but you're not ready. Like I remember, if I had met my wife, I think maybe a year before we met, I would not have looked at her. I would not have been interested. She was still a little bit, immature. She didn't know what she wanted to do in life. And I just would not have been attracted to that. But God's timing is perfect. In our church, with marriage vows, you see it in TV, lots of people in movies and stuff, they write vows for each other. But in our church, we believe that marriage vows shouldn't be between a man and a woman, but between us and God. That's why, if you look in the marriage service, it's between the altar and the people. It is God as witness and the people as witness. But the reality is that marriage is a triangle, with God at the top, with the husband, and with the wife. And that is how our church teaches us about marriage. Now, if the husband and wife, if the husband gets closer to God, and the wife gets closer to God, the husband and wife are getting closer to each other. And that's the key. It's not about trying to spend more time with each other. It's not trying to do things together that will help bring us closer. No. As a husband, I'm going towards God. As a wife, I'm going towards God. And naturally, we are getting closer together. That's how a church designed marriage to be. This is an extract from the text, the prayers that we say in our Coptic ceremony. I don't know if you have this, maybe something similar. It says, "May the Lord who began his divine work at the wedding of Cana of Galilee bless you in your new life and transform things that create division into means of blessings and fill your hearts with spiritual love." That is beautiful. It'll be interesting maybe one day as a future topic that you look at the sacrament of marriage, look at the prayers that are said, and break down the text so you can understand and the value of all. Next one I want to speak about is promises and why promises are overrated. We think that our ability is connected to our promise. Hence people make vows. And that's why we don't make vows with each other, we make a vow to God. Marriages fail because people can't keep their promises. So example, instead of promising to be affectionate or promise to be more helpful in a house, why not prepare? The difference is that the problem isn't lack of commitment, the problem is lack of preparation. You see, people don't act on these things until they are there. Like, if you learn how to swim and you ended up falling into the sea, you will survive because you know how to swim, because you're prepared for it. But if you try to learn how to swim as soon as you fell into the sea, you will drown. So it's about preparation, not commitment, not promising. I'll give you another example. Let's say you decide that you want to run the London Marathon. I don't know how many kilometers that is, but the London Marathon is on a Sunday. You decide that on Saturday, I am going to run the London Marathon tomorrow. I am going to die trying. And I will complete it 100%. I promise myself I have full ability and this is what I want to do. And then the reality is that you go to the marathon, you try to run, and you give all your willpower, as much as you want to do, and in the end, you fail. And you fail not because of lack of commitment. It's not that you didn't fail because you were not willing. You failed because you were not prepared. If you start preparing for the marathon and you start running and practice and getting fit and going to the gym and all of these things, when it comes to the London Marathon, you'll be able to run and complete it. So it is about taking this time now that you have to prepare. There's no point of saying, like, I'll give you other examples. We have friends of mine who smoke, and they say, when I get married, I will stop smoking. What happens when they get married? They can't stop smoking. Because they're taking their single life problem into marriage and thinking, now I can try to resolve it. And you can't. If you were going to stop smoking, why didn't you stop before? And what I'm trying to say is, don't focus so much on the promises. Don't focus so much on, I promise you I'm going to be a great husband. I promise you I will be a good leader. I promise you that I will go to church every single week. So why are you not going now? And I'll come into that in a second. This thing that we call blind love.